Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today's video we're taking a look at yet another Shadow Rider deck, this time featuring a new card, and that is going to be newly revealed. This card was literally revealed just a couple hours ago. The new Hyusian Typhlosion V. And obviously there's Legends Arceus spoilers, so if there anyone here that does not want those, then of course click off. If you have already seen it, I should have warned you, but I probably didn't get a great view. But if you don't want Arceus spoilers, go away now, because there are some, if you don't want to know the final forms, your evolution, or things like that. But also before we get into the video, I'd just like to say sorry for the weird little bar of my computer at the bottom of the screen. I am trying at a different angle where I'm above the playmat instead of beside it, so we're just going to see how this works. And of course it is nighttime, so sorry if there's a glare on the cards because of my computer or something like that. But anyway, let's just get into the deck. Starting off with, of course, a 4/4 Shadow Rider. Because the Typhlosion is Psychic, we need to be able to power this guy up. So we're running a 4/4 Shadow Rider, and it's just a really, really good attacker as well. Some of you might know. It is my favorite deck, maybe of all time. Tied with Mewtwo and Mew. Mewtwo and Mew was really fun as well. But yeah, you guys should know this card by now. It has seen play for pretty much since it was released. Obviously, it's the best deck in format during the Chilling Reign time. But let's get into the exciting cards and two copies of Hyusian Typhlosion V. This is a new card that was just revealed. Now, it is a Psychic type VSTAR, which means it's only worth 2 prizes, 260 HP, which is pretty high. It is worth noting it is weak to Dark, not like Metal, so it is not a great counter to those Dark decks such as Umbreon. Actually, no, it can do a fair time against that because of its VSTAR Power and attack, which I'll get to right now. So the first attack for 2 Psychic and 8 Colorless, you do 180 damage, which is already pretty respectable for 3 energy. You get to put 3 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon and enemy alike. So it's a bit of a buffed in terms of damage to the active and debuffed to the bench Dragon VMAX, which is really decent. I think it is a really good attack just because the pressure that it puts on your opponent combined with the VSTAR Power is good. Really good. On the VSTAR Power, I forget what it's called. It is called Heat Haze Star for a single Psychic Energy. If your opponent's active Pokemon has exactly 4 damage counters on it, it's straight up knocked out. So it is literally Doom Count GX from Evoltal GX on a Psychic type, which is pretty good. And then the attack spreads 30 to the bench, which is nice in combination with Galarian Zigzagoon. If you just put 30 on something and then Zigzagoon it, knock it out with your VSTAR Power. Or you do have Old Cemetery as well, which is a card that is a little bit risky, which I'll get to when we get to that. But with the Heat Haze Star, Old Cemetery definitely has its benefits. Now, going into the Hyusian Typhlosion V, which is actually worth talking about. I think the V is definitely part of what's going to make this guy so good in the Shadow Rider deck. Now this for 2 Psychic and the color. Okay, actually, first of all, let's get to the first attack for free. So we're bringing back those free attacks. So 0 energy, your opponent's active Pokemon is burned. It's fine if you burn them and then it takes damage going into their turn that takes damage going back. You can knock them out with your VSTAR Power, which is something worth noting, I suppose. But the second attack for double Psychic and a colorless, you do 120 damage, and then you choose a random card from your opponent's hand. They reveal it and then shuffle it back in. And now that is really good in combination with a new supporter that will set your opponent's hand size pretty low. And so not only does the Hyusian Typhlosion provide a great not only early game, mid game, and late game, but also even the V that you evolve from is really good too as well, which is, I just think, a huge plus to the card. You have a couple one-of Pokemon. We have 1 copy of Galarian Zigzagoon, as I mentioned, to get the 3 damage counters plus 10 to knock out something with your VSTAR Power. 1 copy of Crobat V, and then a really exciting new card as well. This new Diancie here, which has an ability called Princess Curtain. And it says, as long as this Pokemon is in an active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, you prevent all damage or prevent all effects of that supporter card done to your bench-facing Pokemon, which is really good in a meta that is largely games can be won most of the time, just based on your opponent being able to gust up the Pokemon that you want to evolve and knock it out. Now, this does prevent that. You could just put that guy in the active and say, no, 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 you can't boss me unless you have an escape rope. And if you are scared of escape rope decks, you can add a second one, because if they play escape rope, you can just escape rope into a second DNC, and it's literally impossible for them to gust up your basic Pokemon on your bench. And also, the attack is not half bad either. For a single colorless energy, you do 20 damage, and then you draw 2 cards. So it's a nice way to have a brick as well. Just draw some cards, and it's not like a Crobat, and it can be used like under path. So it has just like niche purposes as well. I'm going to be honest, the attack would be better if it did 10 damage, which is like, probably sounds weird. Like, why are you okay with doing less damage? And that's because if you do 10 damage with the attack, then you attach Choice Belt, you do 40 damage to a Pokemon V, and then suddenly 40 damage is enough to take a knockout with using Typhlosion. So I think, funnily enough, this attack would be like better if it did 10 damage instead of 20. But you can also like boss something turn 2, and then Shadow Mist it with the Choice Belt as well to prevent them from playing their stadiums and their special energy, as well as doing 40 damage and setting up for a instant knockout with your using Typhlosion VSTAR. Going into our supporters, 4 copies of Research, 3 copies of Marnie, pretty standard stuff, as well as, of course, 3 copies of Boss's Orders, and then a single copy of a new supporter card called Roxanne. This is the card I mentioned earlier that will set your opponent's hand size low. It says that if you can only play it if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, but both players shuffle their hand into their deck. You get 6 cards, and your opponent gets 2. So obviously, people are really excited about this card because it's finally a comeback mechanic. People have been screaming for a comeback mechanic ever since Reset Stamp rotated. And even Reset Stamp wasn't that great. People have been screaming for a N reprint ever since N rotated. And then we got Reset Stamp, which wasn't half bad, but also like it wasn't N level. This is more N level. It is a dead card, which is why we're only playing 1. I guess you'd be playing either a second one or a Lumineon V if you want as well, to try and grab out of the deck exactly when your opponent has the 3 or fewer prize cards. But just setting your opponent down to 2 when they have 3 or fewer prize cards left is great, especially, like I mentioned, in combination with the Houston Typhlosion V that can just get rid of a random card in their hand. You can play this and then attack the Houston Typhlosion V, and they're going to have 2 cards in their hand to try and do something, which is really good late game. And like it's just, Roxanne is a really good card. It gets even better with our Typhlosion, which also happens to evolve in our V-Star. It's this whole thing. Going into our item cards, we are running 4 copies of Quick Ball, of course, because we want to get out our Shadow Riders. We are still a Shadow Rider deck. Technically, we still do want to be able to get out all our basics turn 1. It is still good to be being able to use Underworld Door. It's just we're not as reliant on it now because we have like cheaper attacks with our Typhlosion. And yeah, so 4 copies of Quick Ball, and of course, our deck is largely Psychic Pokemon, so we're running 4 copies of Fog Crystal as well. 3 copies of Air Balloon, so you can switch your Pokemon in and out of the active, as well as 2 switch to help with that as well, because you want to be fluent with your Typhlosion and your Shadow Rider. Even like do your dance, you want to have enough outs to that to turn 1 if you need it. We're also running 2 copies of Ultra Ball, which is probably a little bit low. So we're running a 2-2 split of Ultra Ball and Incense, which is probably like a little bit low. I definitely could see you adding a 3rd Ultra Ball or 3rd Incense, maybe even a 3rd and 4th Ultra Ball. Maybe like cut an Air Balloon, you could add another Ultra Ball or Incense. Yeah, I do want, like I just mentioned, I want another Ultra Ball. But overall, I think this should be substantial for getting on your evolutions. You're not dying to get your Shadow Riders like you are with Shadow Rider nowadays. You can hit decent numbers and get knockouts without your Shadow Rider VMAXs. With your Typhlosion, you are going to need a Shadow Rider VMAX to be able to get knockouts with your Typhlosion, but still, like 1 Shadow Rider, you have 4 of them in your deck, as well as 4 Search Outs, as well as 2 Typhlosions. You should be able to get that going pretty consistently. So yeah, we're running the 2 Ultra Ball, 2 Incense, and then we're also running 2 copies of Choice Belt as well. This is going to make our Typhlosion hit 210, so in theory, turn 2, you can boss 210 something, and set up something else for a knockout, which could be pretty powerful, but it's probably not going to be too consistent. You have to get everything exactly right. You have to get your switch out, your 3 psychic energies within 2 turns, and your boss, as well as your 2 evolutions. It is a little bit much to handle, but it's technically possible to just boss knock out something turn 2. You know, maybe you can't even do that because maybe your opponent plays their own DNC. So yeah, 2 copies of choice spell also can help you hit higher numbers with Shadow Rider. Oh yeah, that's actually something I forgot to mention. Not only does the Typhlosion's attack soften up something on the bench to be knocked out with a Shadow Rider, also it means that you just need less energy, which is great. Less or having more spaces open to even run your Typhlosion or space open for the new Roxanne is definitely going to be nice. And choice spell, instead of if you ping something with a Typhlosion 3 times, then you attack with a Shadow Rider with a choice belt. That is 2 less energy you need to get on board, which is a significant amount, and it allows us to run less psychic energy as well. Actually, before getting the psychic energy, we're running 3 copies of Old Cemetery as well, and I think Old Cemetery now is actually going to be better than Training Court because, like I mentioned, you don't need as many psychic energies in your deck to be able to knock out things because you have your Typhlosion that can do-shot things and just knock out something for free with the VSTAR Power. But this can also just fix numbers. Now there is a little bit of a gamble that you can do, whereas if you put 3 damage counters or something, as well as having an Old Cemetery in play, your opponent can purposefully attach energy to that, ping it twice, and now instead of having 3 damage counters on it, now it has 5, which is 1 damage counter too many. There's no way to move damage counters around. You could technically, I guess, play an Agatha, I think. I think that moves damage from your active to your opponent's active. That could be potentially a way to fix that. You could play an Agatha. And I think if you're playing the one of Agatha, you're also playing the one of the Minion. You could add that. But I think just Old Cemetery is good. Just so you can, put it in play, have your opponent accumulate damage, and then without needing to use the Typhlosion and VSTAR's first attack, you can come in, knock out with the VSTAR as well. It only costs 1 energy. You don't need to devote any underworld doors to it either, which is really nice. And then energy, we have 11 psychic energies. Like I mentioned, you don't need as many now because you can soften things up with Typhlosion, and you have your choice spell, Old Cemetery, all these ways to increase your damage. So we don't need too many of them. But yeah, this is just my initial take on the Typhlosion. I can't decide which of the Houston V-Stars I like the best. I think I'm leaning towards the Decidueye. The Samurai VSTAR Power, just putting 4 damage counters on something, is it's not that good. It just, for a VSTAR Power, just seems really, really bad. Why are you putting 4 damage counters on something when you can just search for any 2 cards instead? Putting 4 damage counters on something compared to just searching any 2 cards you want is just super weak. And I just don't know why it's so bad. Maybe there's something that amplifies an item card that we haven't seen yet that amplifies damage or something. I don't know. Or amplifies damage counters placed by VSTAR powers. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why the Samurai's so blatantly bad. But the Decidueye just drawing us, you have 8 on the VSTAR power is really nice. Probably will do a video on that one next. But for now, that is my deck list for Shadow Rider, Typhlosion, using Typhlosion. I think this deck definitely has potential. I think Typhlosion is really good. Just instantly knocking out things, having a mini Trevenor on your basic evolving V. But yeah, that's going to do it for the video. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like. I'm hopefully going to be covering, or plan on covering, some more of the new revealed V-Stars, as I was just mentioning. But yeah, I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.